Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. All right, awesome. Uh, cool. Thank you very much for being here. So I'm going to talk to you today about the Polkadot Developer Heroes Program. Some of you have heard of this, some of you have applied but not accepted certain things. But yeah, so my name is Urban and I work at Parity Technology, specifically with the developer relations team. And before we get into which one? This one. This one. Got it. Before we get into what the Developer Heroes Program is and what it does and how it works, I want to take you back. This is actually the wrong slide deck, but we're going to use this. I want to take you back a little bit, a couple of years actually. So Polkadot launched in 2020, and many of you were around back then. And it was a big thing, right? Polkadot came into existence after many years of development, and it kept launching for about a year. But in reality, there was a lot happening in the background, especially developers coming into the ecosystem. Even before the network was live and alive, ecosystem teams, parachain teams were already building using Substrate to one day hopefully become parachains. And we've seen a tremendous amount of interest even before launch, let alone after the launch. And that just kept peaking, that just kept going. And it was really, really nice to see, being on this end of the spectrum, seeing all these developers come in and engage and build. And fast forward to today, the Polkadot ecosystem is the second largest developer ecosystem out there after Ethereum by many metrics, which again is a huge, huge positive. It's a really, really positive signal for the entirety of the Polkadot ecosystem that is happening. But there were some challenges along the way. Obviously, not everything is sunshines and how they call it, unicorns and sunshines, or something like that. There were challenges along the way. Specifically, we saw, when we in the early days started doing different kinds of hackathons and engagement programs, we saw that a lot of people came in, a lot of developers were very, very interested in what we were doing. They were very curious, but a lot of people just came, experimented, and left. And that's completely fine, right? We don't expect everybody who looks at Polkadot to just magically stay here. So number one, there's a question of retention. How can we make that better? How can we improve retention of developers coming into the Polkadot ecosystem? But it's also connected to the lower 2 points. The Polkadot ecosystem, obviously, it's a decentralized network, so there's a lot happening on different edges of the ecosystem. But it's also very fragmented from a perspective of a user journey. People come in, they might be engaged with one aspect of the ecosystem, but completely fail to engage with another aspect in the ecosystem. And I'm talking about, there's a hackathon here, there's a ecosystem team doing grants, there's a incubator on the other end, and these are not necessarily connected. So the fragmentation doesn't not necessarily come from a tech perspective, but from a user journey or user engagement perspective, which is also connected to the third part, which is just complexity, right? And both of these are kind of two sides of the same coin. It's the good and the bad. Because the ecosystem is growing, it's becoming more complex. There's more technologies to engage with, to use, but there's also more programs, there's more opportunities, there's more jobs, there's just more happening. And in general, this is a very positive signal, but it can be very confusing for at least the new people coming in. So if you bundle these three together, early stage developers sticking around is kind of miraculous if you think about it. Right? There's a lot going on. There's Substrate and Polkadot is a very it has a steep learning curve if you think about it from just an onboarding perspective. Now couple that with some information asymmetry, resources not being available when they need to be. It's actually it is quite a challenge to keep people in the ecosystem. Nonetheless, it is succeeding, right? We've seen a tremendous growth of the ecosystem over the past couple of years. So the takeaway for us, at least on the Parity and the Web3 Foundation side, is how do we make these things better? Not just from a tech perspective, but how do we make these things better from a user journey perspective, from a developer experience perspective? And at least the things that we can influence, we're trying to influence. So we're trying to find more sustainable solutions that can grow with the ecosystem, as opposed to, at least in a year, forcing us to hire a new team onto the Parity side, which is not going to happen, right? So how do we do this? And we've come to the conclusion that a community program, what we call the Polkadot Developer Heroes Program, would be a really, really good fit to address some of these pain points for various reasons. So at its core, there you go. At its core, the Polkadot Developer Heroes Program is built around 3 pillars. One is, this is a community program, right? So it's built around the community to engage with it, to foster a better, more sticky community, to essentially become a very welcoming space for new and existing developers, which already it is, right? I'm not saying this is not true, but the purpose here is to do more, to do better. The second part is what we call grow, and I don't necessarily mean grow the number of developers in the ecosystem, but more from a personal perspective. If you're a developer in the Polkadot ecosystem, we'd love to see you succeed. And for you to succeed, you kind of need to grow as a person, as a developer, professionally and personally. And the program is geared towards, sure, we're going to talk a lot about the technologies and have workshops, mentorships, but also from a non-technical, very personal perspective, we'd love to see people become better speakers, better writers, better advocates, better educators, better developers at the end of the day. So the grow part is, yes, sure, we need to make the pie bigger, but the quality for each individual is also extremely, extremely important. And the third part, we call it inspire. This is, in layman's terms, and to put it differently, you would often call this advocacy, right? We'd love to see people come in and inspire the next generation of developers coming into the Polkadot ecosystem. That might be by becoming speakers at events outside of this space, writing better content, writing educational materials, but also acting as inspiration for the community itself to grow. And again, we're coming back to the grow and to the connect part. So I know I've been talking a lot about kind of the value proposition of the program, but it's really built around these 3 pillars. So this is still very complex, and I'm very sad that this is not the correct presentation. It's the version 1, because I had a really nice GIF on here from Steve Ballmer when he screams, developers, developers, developers. So the program is very much built towards developers, right? So as you'll see later on in the presentation, we do have an application process, and we do reject candidates that are not developers. Now, this is not to turn away interested people, but this is simply to curate a community of developers, because it does require that. So at the very base layer, who is this for? It is for developers that are interested in the Polkadot ecosystem. You might be, Gavin Wood level of engineer, or you might be just very much early stage, just coming in. There's no distinction. This is a community program open for all. So the program is built in a couple of stages. People first apply, and we always check and review these applications. Again, not to turn people away, but barely to curate a community. So once you get accepted, you become a rookie, and that goes for everybody. So we have very senior people apply who've been in the ecosystem for a very, very long time, and we have students, newcomers apply. Everybody starts as a rookie. And the third part is you basically engage with the program. That might be in different modalities, that might be different for different people, but essentially it boils down to some of the activities and programs that we have planned. And I'll go into this in a second, but generally we're talking about workshops, master classes, we're talking about just generally engaging with the community, building events, meetups, and code as well. So a plethora of different things that you can do. Now, once you're in the program for a while, you've maybe built up your quote-unquote resume, and you think you're ready to become a hero. Just being very transparent, we have not fully hammered out everything because this is very, very new. But in general, you would nominate yourself to become a hero, or somebody else nominates you to become a hero. We thought this is kind of the best, most fair way of promoting heroes, except for cherry-picking people. Now, the nomination process does have a process. So there's a panel of people that are going to be reviewing things, going through the nominations, and ultimately approving these nominations, hopefully. So this is kind of in motion already. This is ongoing. Ultimately, we'd love to see people grow and engage with the program to become heroes. So heroes, there's a few things that are prepared for them. There's some swag, NFTs, so we're working on that whole. There's a whole brand coming out. There's going to be a mascot for the Heroes program. But yeah, there's mentoring opportunities, education, public speaking support, mentor to mentor, hero to hero masterclasses, and some of the corresponding things. So I don't want to go into too much detail here because there's different things that are still coming online, that are still being produced. But generally, this is a part of it. So how it's going so far? Again, this is an old old presentation, so the numbers are a bit better. We've actually just accepted 210 applicants into the program, and we've got 170 rookies, or 150 rookies, something like that. There's currently 37 mentors and 90 mentees. So as you can see, this is still very fresh, but given that it launched end of June, it's actually, I'm personally very, very happy with these numbers, just being very, very frank with you all. We were kind of hoping, early stage before we launched this, we were very much hoping to have 100 people accepted into the program by the end of the year. And we've massively exceeded this, which pretty much tells us that there is a need, there is a want for a program like this, but not necessarily a program, but also the corresponding structure that comes with it to alleviate some of the challenge that I spoke about earlier. So there are a few future upgrades. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but like I said, the program just launched. So it's kind of unrealistic and unreasonable to think that we would just launch the program as it's going to be for the next years. So a lot of these components are still coming online. We're still building them. The stuff that is not on here but will be up and running in the next couple of weeks is mentorships. So as you've seen, we had mentors and mentees apply, submit what they want to do. And this is the first part that is actually going to come online and start working. We've got a Notion HQ that has been built, and we're going to publish that. Communities calls are going to start. So a lot of these things that are going to start to help people basically where they need help, and that is like a guiding hand into and across the ecosystem. Workshops are going to kick off this month or next month, something like that. So there's a lot of stuff that's ready to go, but we're basically waiting to finish with all of these events in September to start them. There's a there we go. Program gamification. We're looking at ways how to gamify the whole experience around this. Maybe just parts of it, maybe the whole thing. We'll see how what we find and how it turns out. We're very much excited for the non-technical workshops as well, because a big part of like developer advocacy or developer relations is the advocacy part, and a big part of that is knowing how to educate, knowing how to speak in public, knowing how to engage with people, and this is kind of what we're really, really looking for. I mentioned RFPs, it's also connected to that, so there's a process where people can submit what they want to talk about, what they want to maybe teach, maybe conduct master classes. We're looking at involving more and more of the community, and that is the meaning of this is really to create working groups, to have more active participation on the management level of the program, to help run the whole program, but also to involve ecosystem teams, like for instance our friends from Kilt who are sitting in the first row, to also engage maybe in career fairs, maybe in workshops and so on. So interestingly, so the DevRel team actually has a booth just over there in the other hall, and a lot of companies and teams actually that I spoke today were very, very interested in being part of a very tightly knit developer community because a lot of teams are hiring and a lot of developers on the other end are seeking hiring opportunities. So this is a part that can help this as well. And ultimately, let's say longer term, we are looking at on-chain. We're looking at not just managing the program on-chain, but also trying to fund it on-chain. This again is not maybe next week, it's not next month, but it is absolutely on the roadmap because we don't think that Parity running this indefinitely is good for either Parity or the ecosystem. So we will be taking this outside of Parity as soon as possible. But that does take a little bit of time. We do need to build it up. We do need to get the community involved, the ecosystem teams, and so on. So a lot of stuff is in the works, as you can see. I hope it sounds exciting. It is very exciting, at least to build it from the inside. And the whole thing is brought to you by this wonderful group of people. It is known as the Parity Developer Relations team. And a special thank you to Sophie, who's not here. Yes, a huge fan of Sophie as well, me as well. Sophie has been working pretty much tirelessly, non-stop on this for many, many months, obviously supported by the whole team, but she's the one leading it. I'm very sad that she's not here. She's taking some holiday, so yeah, we gotta give her that. But yeah, I'm very happy that Sophie has pushed this forward, and thank you very much, Sophie. When you're going to watch the recording, I know you will, thank you very much for putting it together. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, this is also missing a QR code where you could apply. But yeah, thank you very much. I'm also very happy we've got a few minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. But all in all, that is it for me. Again, we do have a developer relations booth down there. You can engage with us. You can solve some nice Inc. smart contracting challenges. You can mint your own NFTs, and you can learn more about the Heroes program. You can actually apply and sign up. So yeah, that's it from my end. I'm very happy to take questions if we have any. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for your excellent presentation, Osvald.
Thank you.
Is there any question related to this Developer Hero program? Feel free, just a moment. Can you? Thanks.
Hello again. I was wondering, how does the selection process go? Like, how do you select the members that get in?
Yeah. So there's two parts to this. There is the application to just join the program, and there is the kind of rookie to hero transition. The application process is actually very simple. The baseline is, can you indicate that you have done some sort of development work in the past, recent history? And that's pretty much it, right? We don't want to be turning away people because they're not super advanced or like super into it or whatever, right? We're very happy to have more junior people in there, students and so on, who might not have a beefed up GitHub profile or whatever, right? So the bar there is actually very low. The rookie to hero transition, to be honest, is still being worked out and hammered out. Generally, we're going to be looking at 4 larger topics: engineering, community involvement, community leadership, and just like you call it education, for instance. How much? Yeah, these are like broad buckets that we're thinking about. We're looking at specific kind of data points for that, and we're going to ask you to submit certain things, certain evidence of that. But again, I think you'll see some people transitioning from rookie to hero very fast, some just not, which is completely fine. Because if somebody who's very senior has done this over a number of years applies, obviously they're going to transition very fast. We do plan to have a cadence of reviewing these applications. So the applications to become a member are ongoing. I do this actually every day. The rookie to hero is most likely just going to happen once per quarter, because we can't be doing this nonstop. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to say we have a few more minutes, so if you have more questions, feel free to ask. We have 3 more minutes.
Okay, hello. You are saying this program is for developers. So what you mean by developers? Any kind of developer interested in a Substrate ecosystem, Polkadot ecosystem, or developers who have touched already this kind of thing?
Yeah, there's no real limit on what kind of developers. Like I said, we are trying to be as open as possible, especially in the early stages, because, you know, frankly, we see a lot of developers come in and out. Some might be very senior, some might be super into Substrate, Polkadot Frame, and all these things. Most are not, right? And those who are not, they need the most guidance, most help, most support, most mentorship. So there's really no, there's no hard limit. As long as there's an, shred of evidence that you know, that you have something to do with being an engineer, being a developer. That's good. Yeah. Cool. We had, I think, one more.
Thank you. Is there one more question?
You have other programs like the Substrates Builder program and Square One, I believe, or what's the relationship between these and those?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, as you pointed out, there's quite a few programs that actually have the same but very different target audiences. So if you look at the Builders program, it is really, it's meant for existing building teams in the ecosystem that need support. It's closer to an incubator really than a community program. On the other end of the spectrum, you might have something like the Ambassador program, the Polkadot Ambassador program, which is a very broad community program, but it doesn't serve specifically the developer audience. It does to a certain extent, but it's not a specifically designed program for that. So we are trying to fill that gap where we actually try to guide people more towards different initiatives, programs, when they need that, right? Because think about the Substrate Builders program or the Web3 Foundation's grant program or something like that. When would people engage with that? Probably very on their later stages of their journey into the Polkadot ecosystem, right? At least my assumption is that nobody who is very fresh and just looks at the Polkadot network page is going to go and apply to the Substrate Builders program. Highly unlikely, right, that that's going to happen. So the question comes back to the retention, the fragmentation, and the increasing complexity. How do we navigate this? So this program is specifically designed to alleviate some of these pain points. It's not meant to be competing, but rather complementary to other things that we do. Cool. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.